Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, starring Daniel Craig, Edward Norton, Janelle Monáe, Dave Bautista, Kate Hudson, Katherine Hahn, Leslie Odom Jr., Jessica Henwick, and Madeline Klein, directed by Ryan Johnson. Now, before I get into this movie, there's a confession story, I must say. I did go see this in theaters before it ever premiered on Netflix. And I'm going to tell you something. There was a couple of trailer moments that were pretty funny. For example, when that M. Night Shyamalan movie called Knock at the Cabin, which looked terrible, by the way, but I have no choice but to review it for the show. But when that trailer came on, one guy behind me, when they saw his name and the movie title, he went, "Pfft," like I would too, because that looks bad. And also the Gerard Butler movie where he's flying an airplane and gets it crashed or whatever, the title was came up and then the audience started laughing at it, which was hysterical. So I kind of had a hysterical audience experience before the movie ever started. And and I did see it a couple more times on Netflix. So let's see how good this movie is compared to the first one, which was Knives Out. So let's get into this movie. The movie opens with a group of friends named Claire DeBella, played by Katherine Hahn, while getting interviewed on the TV. Lionel Toussaint, played by Leslie Odom Jr., while on a call from his job. Birdie J., played by Kate Hudson, while partying with her friends, and her assistant Peg, played by Jessica Henwick from that forgettable Matrix film from last year, and Duke Cody, played by Dave Bautista, as well as his girlfriend Whiskey, played by Madeline Klein, while filming live on his phone, get a box of clever games inside. And as they get in the end, they get an invitation to a friend's party on his private island, while we get a cameo by Yo-Yo Ma while at Birdie J's party while solving the invitation game. And his friend I brought up is Miles Braun, played by Edward Norton, while Andy Brand, played by Janelle Monáe, just smashes the damn thing up, which is clever and hilarious. Benoit Blanc, returned by Daniel Craig, has a meeting with Natasha Lyonne, Stephen Sondheim, and a couple of other celebrities on the computer while sitting in that bathtub. And I'm thinking, is this what happened to him after the first movie? Which did feel a bit odd. While he gets the box as well, while we'll talk about how that goes later. All this taking place during COVID-19. We get to the Greece. We get to Greece where they ship sail and the friends meet Blanc as they take some pills from a machine to stop COVID from getting to them on the ship to the island. As they sail for 2 hours and get to the island and meets Miles on his private beach, and his roommate Daryl, and the friends believe he's invited Blanc because this party is about Miles's murder mystery, and Miles wasn't aware of it. While Miles asks for Blanc in his office, which is the shape of a glass onion, which makes perfect sense for the movie's title, don't get me wrong. And Miles asks Blanc why is he here, and he got all it. And all of this will be explained later in the film, but for now, let's stick to the movie as it is for now. As the audience will get a flashback later in the film, while all the friends hate Andy for Miles' reasons, which I'll get into later in the film. And as well as I really enjoy how clever this movie is, as I like the characters, but not as much as the first time, as they're good friends, while last time it was the family of a dying victim. And last time I said my money was on Chris Evans' character, while this time before I walked into the movies, I thought it was Birdie with Duke as the muscle. But we'll see if I'm right or wrong at the end of the show. Blanc, Andy, Miles, and the other friends all hang out together as they're talking, and the dialogue works just as well as the first movie, but it's not a game of Clue like the first movie is. And I really like how director Ryan Johnson made this into a murder mystery mixed with a comedy, as the first film was a comedy, but I felt the laughter when I first saw this in theaters back on Thanksgiving, as sometimes this movie is funny in a clever way. Everyone suspects something different with Andy, while Peg tells Miles to not do whatever it is he's doing to Birdie, while Miles tells her to tell Birdie to make a statement, or Birdie tells Peg tells Miles, yeah, you get the point, to tell her to tell Birdie to make a statement, which seems selfish of Miles, while Duke sees Whiskey and is cheating on him for Miles, and Blanc is around to see each and every one of their secrets, which is smart. Miles brings up after Claire asks why he has a painting of the Mona Lisa in a room where everyone is hanging out at, as he makes a drug called Clear with a K, as he wants to release it to the world, with as a couple of friends are concerned about testing it, like Claire and Lionel. And Miles thinks about the future, and Miles explains what the rules are for the game of his murder mystery, and Blanc explains how he gets killed by a crossbow and reveals the secret to the point it upsets Miles, as it was funny when earlier in the scene Blanc asks what do they win, and Miles says maybe an iPad, and he, after solving his game, hands him an iPad, as Blanc explains to Miles to play nicely with the others and to take his presence as a sign. But as for the rest of the murder mystery, when Miles had to hire Gillian Flynn, who's the writer of the book Gone Girl, and I'm liking this movie quite a bit. Some of the friends thinking about leaving the island the next day, while Andy is the elephant of the room, as they bring up Andy and the trial against Miles and act like jerks, and Andy, as she wants the truth, while Duke calls her the loser, and his phone kept ringing as it was annoying the crap out of me. They celebrate Duke hitting his mark on his Twitch account. That's what that was at the beginning. After he was being the jerk to Andy, and he gets the first death by choking on some poison in his drink, and Whiskey is sad for him, and the movie is well made as it works well. And boy, was I wrong about Duke by the end of the day. Blanc believes someone poisoned Duke on purpose, while Lionel calls for a boat for emergency reasons. But unfortunately, they won't come until the next morning, and Miles learns the poison is meant for him, as he believes his friends are trying to kill him, and they have to find Andy, and the place goes dark at 10 o'clock at night, and they're led to believe Andy did the death of Duke, and Blanc tries to find Andy. As he finds her, someone shoots at Andy with a gun. That might have been from Duke's gun, because remember, he had a gun earlier. If they think they're going too fast, well, we're about to get a flashback of what happens, which is a smart idea. We go back to Blanc in the bathtub with his roommate Philip, played by, briefly, Hugh Grant, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but whatever. With Andy's sister Helen going to Blanc because she was murdered. And how does this make sense? Well, I'll get there. As Helen asks Blanc for help by getting Blanc to the private island, and he asks Helen to go and disguise herself as Andy, while the others don't know she's dead, which does work in the first half of the movie, as they only knew her as Andy in the movie, as well as the first film, has smart ideas and how to make the trick work very well. And according to the plan, while the trial was about Miles wanting ownership of Claire, while the others billed Miles as the owner of the drug. And all of this is tremendously planned. While on the island, Helen snoops around and meets Whiskey while she walks her to the pool and overhears Andy was right about Claire, and slips a tape recorder into Birdie's purse. And this works absolutely so freaking great, actually. It's really clever. Claire and Duke want to talk with Andy about the email she sent to the friends over and over again, and they were at her house and knocking on for an hour at her door, as she gets info about how much they cared for Andy, Helen, and Blanc, talking about the case, while Serena Williams is in the background, asking for a workout session, and Duke realizes Miles screwed him, as well as while Birdie and Peg have a conversation about putting an end to Miles, as she will make a statement for him, as Helen goes around and snoops around while everybody is in. When Duke died, Whiskey ran back to the room while Andy snoops around and tries to kill her with a crossbow. And we go back to Blanc finding Helen until she was gunned down. And it all connects as Andy is alive and plays dead with hot sauce invented by Jeremy Renner, who's currently in the hospital now. Get well, Jeremy. And finds the envelope while Blanc gets everybody inside. This makes perfect sense. Honestly, it really does. Blanc explains the story by connecting the dots, while Helen finds the envelope behind a photo of Blanc bringing up a thing that's not a word, and it all adds up by saying Miles is an idiot for making Duke pick up his glass in front of everyone's eyes as Miles killed Andy and rushes out of her house, and Blanc reveals Andy was actually Helen, aka Andy's sister, revealing Miles's poured pineapple juice. And his drink is and by his, I'm talking about Duke's drink, as he's allergic to pineapple juice, said it earlier in the film. And Miles grabs Duke's gun and uses it to shoot Helen, and she catches Miles by her hand, written, and Miles burned the napkin. And Miles proves nobody saw him burning the napkin, as it's his word against the others, as everyone says what Miles didn't burn the napkin, as they won't tell the truth against Miles, as the twist was clever, but Blanc can't do anything to take him in except to tell Helen to break some glasses around the room. And she does break everything as the friends do the same thing Helen does, which is destroying all the glass, including the protection of the Mona Lisa painting, and burning the house down, as well as the clear drug and the glass onion office. And Helen gets out of there while with Miles having absolutely nothing. That was a twist I never saw coming, and I'll never guess the villains until watching half the movie ever again. And everybody goes against Miles and says they saw the napkin was burned by Miles, and the boy, and they come, and the the paramedics and I'll say come to the island, and the climax was damn clever. I am gonna admit that crap out of the way. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 8.5 out of 10. It's not quite as good as Knives Out, but this is just as well made and very relatable characters, as this twist was something I did not expect, and I'll never guess the plot twist again during the movie instead of before the movie, as it makes sense during the movie. The script, like the first film, is as smart and as ever, and I really like the movie's smart script and idea as it was working so freaking great. At the end of the day, this is a well acted and a well made movie as it does things in a clever way, and this is again a strong recommendation. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for Ryan Johnson's Oeuvre, and until we get to a Knives Out 3, which will probably be in another couple of years, we'll see. But until then, the case has been solved.